to you live from Cape May County, New Jersey, via SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk, Radio, and Television. I am very, very happy to have with us, actually more than happy, actually like super duper extra excited, to be more accurate, to have with us today. She's a former CIA intelligence officer, security consultant, and author of the book Breaking Cover: My Life in the CIA and What It Taught Me About What's Worth Fighting For. Her name is Michele Rigby Assad, and I'm happy to count her as a newly acquired friend of mine. Oh my goodness, Eden Gordon's here. I'm so excited. So she is in the Facebook chat. So anyway, I'm very excited. Eden says we are adorable and we made her day. By the way, Michelle's like hanging out on hold, but she can hear the whole radio show. So I'm super excited that I was able to get Michele on the show today. And so you may be asking yourselves, before I get into the housekeeping, how does a business diva and a former CIA intelligence officer meet? Because we generally do not travel in the same circles as you might imagine, because, you know, former CIA intelligence officers, you know, are like way cooler than business divas, just saying. So, and they don't tend to hang out with business divas because we're kind of lame. So, but we share one thing in common, which is an absolute ace publicist extraordinaire in one Eden Gordon, excuse me. So who will not be that for long, but that's another story. So we are super excited for her and super excited to have her as a publicist, and so happy that she had the fantastic idea for us to meet. So and I just want to tell you one thing about, so we met in New York City. We had a lunch meeting, and we met at this really schwanky, like cool restaurant in New York City, and she introduces herself, and I already know who she is because she's one of Eden's clients, and I know that she spent, you know, 10 years in the CIA as a counterterrorism CIA intelligence officer, and I'm a radio host and a teacher, so I'm feeling really super cool at this point. So you know, she introduced herself, you know, Michele Assad, and I'm like, oh, Melanie, and I'm looking in the eyes of a CIA counterintelligence agent. I'm just like, ah! Sorry. So I can't really contain myself, and we're having this conversation, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's so super cool. And I do podcasts. I don't know. She's just telling me about her life. And all that she and her husband has done. So I said all that to say that that's why I'm super excited and just feel privileged to have her on my show, and to call her one of my newly acquired friends. And you guys are going to be blessed through the blessing that God has given me to have her be in my path. So I can't wait to introduce her a bit later. Anywho. You can say hi, Michele. Anyway, you want to say hi? You want to say hi?
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, so she's here. I'm excited. So anyhow, she's awesome too. And cute as a button. Do you guys see her picture? And she's adorbs, like on top of everything else. She's pretty. So anyway. Sorry, I just had to say that. All right. So anyhow, can you tell I'm like a little bit excited about that? Just tiny bit. And look, one more thing, okay? Just one more thing about Michele. So we're having this conversation, and toward the end of the conversation, you know, so she tells me her story, I tell her mine, and we start talking about she's a security consultant, right? Like, you know, totally badass security consultant. So I start telling her about kind of like some of the, you know, dangers of being brown and conservative and having a big mouth like I do. And recently I had been threatened on Facebook, relatively serious threat of bodily harm. And so before, you know, putting a cap in that behind, She asked me about the physical, outlay of my home and things like that, and gave me some really great tips on how to protect myself. So it just really just fantastic, just great. So super excited for her to be here. Okay, some housekeeping items. So some housekeeping items to talk about. Going to be back on Sirius tomorrow night, Sirius XM Patriot 125. If you want to call in and give me a shout, we're going to be talking about whatever's going on current event-wise. Nothing boring going on in the news, that is for sure. So that's tomorrow night. Oh, so that also means that Money Talk with Melanie will be a re-air. I might re-air this, might re-air something else. I haven't decided, but I'll post about it. Ron Edwards, welcome. Good to see you. So I'm not sure what I'm going to talk, what I'm going to re-air. We'll see. But that means tomorrow will be a re-air. I have a new sponsor that's confirmed. He should be coming on Friday, I believe. My new sponsor, so I'm excited about that. I will announce it on Friday. He confirmed today. The contract's supposed to be signed on Friday. So once that is Deontay is going to fill in for me if I need. Thank you, Deontay. You know what? Maybe I should get somebody to fill in, like Lonnie Poindexter. He's like, he's such a big deal. He has fill-in hosts. That's how he rolls. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'll get a fill-in host. We'll see. Anyway, so I have a new sponsor, so I'm excited about that. That's going to be firmed up on Friday, and maybe I'll start running those ads. But in the meantime, I would like to thank my sponsor, Tax Mama, aka Eva Rosenberg. Go to her website, taxmama.com with 1 M. If you don't know about her already, she's got 2 award-winning books, Small Business Taxes Made Easy and Deduct Everything. Also, she will answer your tax questions for free. Also, if you've ever thought about buying a franchise, franchise warnings. 21 is one of David Barnett's books. You can find it at businessbuyeradvantage.com, where you can also find free instructional videos on buying franchises. You can also find another book called 21 Stupid Things People Try When Buying a Business. Really smart guy, that David Barnett. I've had him on the show before. I should be having him back on very shortly. What else? I think that's it. Actually, one more thing. Hey, Mr. Lamarge Garrett, good to see you. One more thing. Hurricane victims are still in recovery. If you want to donate to a Christian nonprofit, non-denominational organization where the money will actually get to the victims, please do consider 8 Days of Hope, spelled out, the number 8 spelled out, not the physical number, spelled out, EIGHT, Days of Hope.com. Consider donating to that organization so it will get to, the money will get to the people that need the money. Okay. Money Talk News. Let's see. Oh, now I got to pick one. I had like 20 news stories to do, and now I have to pick. Now I have to pick one. I'm not gonna do the Vegas story, only because my guess is you guys have heard all about it, and it's not that I don't think it's important. Is that my guess is it's on 24/7, right? So I'm not gonna do that, but I will do this. Have you guys heard that Twitter is expanding their, I'm going to do something really mundane and stupid instead. Twitter's expanding their character amount. This is majorly important, though. We're going from 140 characters to 280. Do the budget? Deontay, you want me to talk about the budget? I don't want to talk about the budget. I don't want to. I'll talk about your budget Thursday, I promise. I don't really want to talk about the budget. And no, I don't want to talk about Donald Trump today. There was a request to talk about Donald Trump, but Deontay Johnson always wants to talk about Donald Trump. I'm just saying. So anyway, so I told you I want to talk about something mundane like Twitter doubling their character count. I have to say, from a promotional standpoint, whenever I'm promoting my shows, I find 140 characters challenging. I'm just saying. Like, how am I supposed to fit the whole title to Michele Assad's fabulous book when I tweet about it into one tweet. And it's come on, breaking cover, my secret life in the CIA, and what it taught me about what's worth fighting for. That's an important whole title. I can't fit that in 140 characters, Twitter. So I'm glad that they upped their character count. I'm just saying. Because now I can fit the whole tweet in there. All right. Anyway, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your one and only business diva, Melanie Collette. And we will be back in a few minutes with the fantastically fantabulous Michele Rigby Assad. We will be back in a few moments.
The plots, plans, and tricks to overthrow America. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards on today's page from the Edwards Notebook. In American society today, to say stuff has hit the fan is an enormous understatement. When I observe everything ranging from Trump-hating, American flag disrespecting, oppressed multi-millionaire athletes kneeling, sitting, or remaining in their locker room during the national anthem, or an NFL commissioner who didn't even allow Dallas Cowboy football players to wear patches to honor police officers slain while protecting America and police haters, yet supports anti-flag protests. When I witness the ongoing college campus protests against freedom of expression, unless those speaking hate America and want to overthrow our republic and replace capitalism with communism. When you read about the growing support for bigoted anti-Christian activity, while allowing the teaching of Islam in government schools, or the effort to flood our media and public discourse with never-ending complaints about racism, oppression, and Americanism, it is an orchestrated movement by Antifa groups to accomplish the complete doing away with our constitutionally limited form of government. Wake up, America. The enemy is here. I'm Ron Edwards.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the tax benefits of different forms of financing, spot and fix errors in the 1099s, legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Start deducting today. Visit TaxMama.com. TaxMama.com. That's TaxMama with one M.com.
My name is David Barnett, and I've been helping people buy and sell small and medium-sized businesses since 2008. So far this year, I've gone on 5 vacations. It's because I've got my own business. When you get tired of being managed by someone else and you decide that business ownership is right for you without the risk of starting your own unproven enterprise, then come over to businessbuyeradvantage.com. There are over 100 YouTube videos on buying and selling businesses that you can watch for free. That's businessbuyeradvantage.com.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette. And I would like to introduce my guest to you this afternoon. Her name is Michele Rigby Assad, and she joined the CIA in January 2002 and spent a decade working as an undercover intelligence officer in the Directorate of Operations. Specializing in counterterrorism and counterintelligence, Michele worked in Iraq as well as other secret Middle Eastern locations. To date, Michele has lived in 6 countries in the Near East region and traveled in more than 40 others. Michele, I said that already. Michele is an author, public speaker, trainer, and international security consultant focused on Middle East, North Africa, and Europe. She holds a master's degree from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service and a political science degree from Palm Beach Atlantic University. She and her husband, Joseph, live in Florida. How cool is that? I'm just saying. So without further ado, Michele Rigby Assad, how are you?
Well, I'm great now, Melanie, with that introduction.
And like you're okay, because like you just found out, like on paper, how awesome you are, right?
Well, you made me sound even cooler than that. Thank you very much.
Well, because you are, just saying.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm very excited to be on your show today. Thank you for inviting me.
I am excited to have you here. And you know, I was thinking about, I had a hole in my schedule, and I was like, oh man, what, you know, and I don't know why I didn't have you on the show sooner, quite honestly. But you know what? Everything in its perfect timing. Eden and I were talking about that very thing this morning. And I thought, you know, this whole thing with, you know, what happened in Las Vegas is terrorism in my mind. We don't know what sort, but anytime you have a mass, you know, shooting like that, it's some sort of terrorism. We just don't know what the source is, right?
I agree. Yes, I agree entirely. And the whole nation really is mourning this right now. It almost feels a little bit like 9/11 in the sense that even if you didn't know someone who was injured or killed or was at the event and traumatized by it, we all feel that collective feeling of traumatization and obviously are spending a lot of time praying for the victims and their families. And it affects us all, really.
Indeed. And, you know, the fact that you are one of the things that I thought of, Dave Milner, hello. Thomas, how are you? Don McCleary, hey. Just giving a shout out to my peeps in the Facey chat. So, you know, one of the things that came to mind was the fact that you are a security expert and a counterterrorism expert. And I thought about the conversation that we had when I told you that I had been threatened on Facebook. And kind of, you know, a lot of the conversation that's going on is, you know, how could this have been avoided? And why are we talking about this on Money Talk with Melanie? Well, whenever you're talking about how can this be avoided, of course, you're always talking about some type of financial investment, whether it's public money, privately, you know, what's the hotel going to have to invest financially? What are public entities, police, firemen, first responders, what are they going to have to invest, whether it's in technology, in larger forces and overtime? What are they going to have to invest to try to prevent or mitigate the damage?
Right. And training too. Training will be a huge component of this.
Excellent point. I hadn't even thought of about that. And people like you are probably going to be the people who are going in and training people as how, you know, counterterrorism, how to counter this kind of thing. And so I thought, you know, you would be the perfect person to talk about the strategies and things that people would have to pay for. And frankly, to talk to my audience about the fact that there are some strategies. He's never going to be able to prevent it all, but there are some.
Yes. Yes, and it's really hard to prevent active shooter scenarios and other types of terror attacks. And we used to say in the CIA all the time, they have to be right once, we have to be right all the time. And as we know, it's impossible. You can't be right all the time. And sometimes there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But empower people on how to react if, God forbid, they ever find themselves in a situation like this. If there's something you can do about it, what is that? Fun.
Indeed. And much like, you know, the advice that you gave me about, you know, my home, just in case, you know, that person made good on their threat, like things that I could do, you know, there are things that we could do when we find ourselves, you know, we don't want to tell ourselves, okay, now we're never going to go to large public areas, you know,
right.
But
right.
Now, you know, what can we do if we decide that we still want to go to that concert? You know, what are some strategies that we can put into place for ourselves?
Right. Well, I think the first thing, and this is what you and I talked about when we had lunch at the cafe, was identifying the times and the places where you are most vulnerable. And so you and I talked about, okay, where could somebody target you if they're really intent on doing that? So we talked about your vulnerable points. And so I think everyone is very clear on the fact that whenever you're in a large gathering, whether that's in a stadium or a concert hall or even a mall, is how and when you're vulnerable. So the first thing that I do when I go to these places is to look for all the entrances and exits. And you want to look past that main entrance and look for alternative exits, because there tends to be a lot of chaos if there's an attack. You don't want to get trampled, and so you look and try to find places where you can go or routes you can take to get out if something goes down. So that way your brain is kind of prepared. I do that kind of wherever I go when I'm in a big place like that. And then number two, I like to identify good cover. So I think to myself, okay, God forbid something happened here. Where is the nearest cover I could run to? And it could be something as simple as a garbage can or a vehicle. But the idea is to move away from the spot where an attack is occurring. And in my book, I talk about it. There's a phrase called get off the X. So the X is the place where terrorists launch an attack against you. So that's the place of your greatest vulnerability because it's where they have the power. So in Las Vegas with this event, the shooter was in a position of power on the 32nd floor shooting, down into the crowd, right?
Right.
So the idea is they were extremely vulnerable there. Getting down or crouching down, which is normally what we tell people to do, is not all that helpful because it really doesn't change your position. The idea would be to get behind cover. And I know there was a lot of confusion because nobody knew where the shooting was coming from. So they didn't know which direction to run in. And so sometimes you have to guess. But the idea for the future, for your listeners, is to say when they're in a place like that, where is the cover and what would I need to do to get to it? So you want to get down and then get behind something. And the other thing, too, that I like to tell people is the only thing that you really want to avoid is freezing. Because when we are under intense, the human body tends to get, you have one of three responses: fight, flight, or freeze. And the one thing that you want to avoid is freezing. Freezing is what puts you in a position where you could get killed. And so when we were going through training, paramilitary training at the CIA, how to survive an ambush, they say, we are trying to train your brain so that when you're under intense stress, you will do anything but freeze. So when I say get off the X, get to cover, it really means just don't freeze.
Just move. Whatever you do, move.
Yeah. Move, exactly. Which is hard to do because you're confused. You don't know exactly what's happening. It's really hard to sort through all that's happening around you, the noise, the chaos, the screaming, the shooting. It's a lot for your brain to process. But if you thought through that ahead of time, you're ahead of the game, mentally and emotionally.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So now let me ask you this. A lot of people are talking about the hotel and how much time he had to prepare. And I was listening to another radio show today that had a chat component, and there was a lot of conversation in the chat room about this too. The security of the hotel from a counter-terrorism perspective. Apparently, at least from what I'm hearing in the news, he had these two platforms in this 2-room suite. And people are asking, well, like, how could he have brought so many guns up and no one noticed? And I mean, in the summertime, when I was a full-time school teacher, in the summer, I used to work in hotels, and I used to work, front desk and night audit. Never once did we ever think about what guests had in their bags or how many bags they brought up or anything like that. I mean, it could have been golf clubs. Who knows? Like who? I mean, you're never looking at that. And sometimes guests will use the bell carts themselves.
Right. And, it's really impossible to even think of, oh, well, let's make sure we just put, all the bags through security. I've lived in the Middle East for long periods of time when there was a heightened terrorism threat. And and they tried to use metal detectors in hotels, and they still do in many places, and they're just really not all that effective. And it's extremely burdensome, and as you mentioned, expensive. And quite honestly, I don't think it would be that hard for him to get these weapons upstairs in suitcases or bags or whatever. I mean, he had them concealed. And it's Vegas. Think about that. Think about how many odd people doing odd things are walking around Vegas. So it would be really hard to identify him as being weird or looking different. But at the beginning and the end of the day, I think I would love to give your listeners the courage to say something if they do see something strange. If their intuition goes off, they see something go, oh, you know what, I'm just being too sensitive from the terrorist attack, or I'm just being silly. Your intuition is there for a reason. And when the alarm bells in your head go off, it's rather be safe than sorry. It's better to tell someone what you've seen that doesn't seem correct. It seems unusual. It's better to go ahead and do that and have the courage to do that. And so there are a lot of situations in which people did speak up and they prevented something from happening because they had the courage to tell somebody in a place of authority or security to mention what it is they had seen.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And now I had said a friend of mine used to be a professional gambler in Vegas. And she said, you know, that something like it's a requirement in Vegas for housekeepers to come in every 24 hours. Because I had said, you know, that whenever I go someplace, the first thing I do, especially if I'm staying multiple days, the first thing I do is put the do not disturb sign on the door. I don't like people in my room. I don't want to worry about my jewelry and my technology and all that kind of stuff when I'm away. So, you know, when I'm in a hotel room, I just don't want to worry about it. So I make my own bed when I'm away. That's just how I am. But she said that there's some rule in Vegas, and she's like, I don't know how anybody could have noticed. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, for him to have a platform in there, I'm like, what? Like, but like you were like, Vegas is packed.
And you know, probably doesn't even take that much time to set it up. You know, he could do that fairly quickly. It's amazing how quickly things can go south. But you know, the other thing is to catch people. Because see, I'm a firm believer there had to be signs in the sky. You know, he planned this ahead of time. He had to have something going on, and somebody had to have seen it. So it's identifying behavioral issues before something happens.
Now, this guy did not fit any profile so far, apparently. What do you think about that? Like, he's a multimillionaire. Fits none of the profiles so far.
Yeah, I mean, except having a massive gambling addiction, and who knows, who knows what's going on in his brain? You know, it feels kind of like the Unabomber. You know, just something is not right there. So as you probably heard, ISIS made 2 separate claims. Actually, now it's 3 as of today. 3 separate claims that he was a soldier of Allah and he was acting on their behalf. But as a former intelligence officer, I can tell you, Melanie, that is so easy to verify. You're going to see it almost immediately, because the whole point of martyring yourself or carrying out an attack of this kind of proportion would be so that people knew you were doing it on behalf of ISIS or Al-Qaeda or whomever. So they would be able they would see either religious materials or a martyrdom video. They would see evidence of his relationship with whoever had radicalized him in his social media or his emails or his phone records. It would be very, very simple for investigators to find this. So the fact that they haven't, even though ISIS has made very specific claims about, you know, what was his Islamic name when he converted, it's just not bearing out.
I was going to say, I mean, you would think we would know by now. Like, usually if there's Islamic ties, we know by now, right?
There would be indications of it. And even if they were trying to keep it quiet as they fully investigated it, it would be slipping out by now. I really believe that. Just because there's no reason for him to hide it.
Right. Now, what do you think of the fact that just from an intelligence perspective, the fact that his girlfriend was overseas when this happened?
I do find that suspicious, and so if I were an investigator, that would be something I'd want to run down, because I would find it really impossible to think that someone's partner had no idea that something was going on, i.e. this person was disturbed, This person was super angry. This person was collecting an arsenal of weapons. It's just, if she didn't, then she's incredibly naive, and or, you know, he had them in one house and she stayed in another house. But that's definitely something that you want to look into. How much did she know, and what did she understand about his mental state, his finances, his potential gambling addiction, stuff like that. And then just to make sure that she's not connected with it in any way.
Yeah, I found that awfully suspicious. That, I mean, I'm no expert, but I'm like, I don't know. Anytime the significant other, quote unquote, just so happens to be out of town when something goes down, come on
fishy.
now. I mean,
that's a little fishy.
Yeah, so something is, you know, I'm no expert, but something's a little dusty in Denmark when that's the case. So somebody just asked me, and I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but you might, because this person's super smart and you're super smart, so maybe you understand what he's asking. It might just be over my head. My friend Dave Milner asked, please ask her how close contact his intimates had with him. I don't understand that question. Maybe he just, I don't.
Not sure.
Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe you could phrase it differently for me, because I'm not sure I understand the question. But I don't. Here's the other thing. How apparently now they're saying that he passed the gun store where he got the stuff. Is saying somebody said maybe he was waiting for her to leave, like maybe he knew she was traveling. And
sure, yeah, and use that opportunity. He wouldn't get her into trouble, right?
I don't know. Somebody asked what his political affiliation was. Yeah, please God, let him be a Democrat. But anyway.
I don't think they've even mentioned that at all. I have been scouring the press and haven't seen that anywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, now supposedly he has passed. There was nothing in his record that said he was cray-cray. He passed all the background checks. Seems to be a lot of guns.
Right. I just believe there has to be something there. I mean, the brothers' conversation, God bless him, he was in shock and, you know, had no idea what was going on. But I suspect that if you had a longer discussion with him, a lot more would come out, because it seemed as if he didn't necessarily have a intimate or close relationship with his brother. He probably knew if some little things weren't quite right. Now, nobody thinks that their brother is going to become a serial killer or, you know, somebody who makes the biggest active shooter event in our modern history. I mean, that's still shocking, but I bet if you spoke with him, you'd learn all kinds of details, which I'm sure investigators are looking at right now, indications that something was off.
Yeah, I you know, apparently his dad had some issues with the law, but that's not, I mean, I don't know. It's all, for them to not have a motive yet. Do you find that strange?
I think that's the most frustrating thing, right?
Right. I mean, does that seem strange to you, or do you think they're withholding it?
I think it's very strange. And yesterday I thought possibly they maybe had some leads and were withholding it. But maybe what your friend was suggesting, that there weren't too many people who were intimate with him and that he was a little bit of a loner, might be a reason why, you know, people didn't know about his state of mind or what was going on. And maybe it's just he didn't associate with very many people. But I do find it very odd that somebody that sick would not, you know, be known to someone. You know what I mean? There would be indications or red flags that would pop up, because that indicates so much anger in that act. Right. So much anger and violence. How do you hide that?
I don't know. That's the part I don't get. And I think what Dave Milner was asking was, was he a loner, or did he have frequent contact with other people? But I haven't gotten any indication that he was a loner. It's
hard to tell unless you have his phone records. That might be the best indicator of his social connectivity to others.
That's a good point. Okay, yeah. We're up against the break. When we come back, I want to talk a little more about the counterterrorism aspects on a wider scale, not just about this case. The cost, we spend billions, literally billions of dollars in counterterrorism. And I want to talk to you about that when we get on the other side of the break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My guest is Michele Rigby Assad, who is a former counterterrorism CIA agent. And and an author as well. And we will be back on the other side of the break. Hello and welcome to this week's Few Minutes of Personal Finance with your business diva, Melanie Collette. This week we cover the most uncomfortable topic of tipping. Yes, tip. There are many people out there who do not seem to know when it is appropriate to tip and when it isn't. So I'm going to cover it for you right now. When should you always tip, and by how much? 15 to 20% you should always tip these particularly service people: your hairstylist and your barber, your taxi driver, your waiter or your waitress, your massage therapist, your manicurist or pedicurist, your animal groomer, your bartender, your bellhop, and your full service car wash attendant. Now, when is it okay to occasionally tip? Your bus driver or your limo driver, if you're lucky enough to have one. Your wine steward, your mover. These people, it's okay to occasionally tip if you feel so inclined. $1 per passenger for your limo driver is okay. For your wine steward, 15 to 20%. And for your mover, $10 to $20. Now, during the holidays, this can be a particularly uncomfortable time to decide how much to tip. So here are your guidelines. If you're fortunate enough to have a contractor who's working on your home, $15 to $50 per person is okay for your contractor. If you have a house or pool cleaner, up to the total cost of one visit is okay to tip. For paper delivery, $10 to $30. For your pet sitter or pooper scooper, up to 15% of one visit is okay. And if you're fortunate enough to have someone who is maintaining your yard, $20 to $50 is perfectly okay to say thank you. There you are. There you have it. Your personal finance tip of the week with your business diva, Melanie Collette. And remember, all of this is very important because, after all, it is your money.
The best late night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk. The Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America. And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Okay, we are back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette, and I have with me today Michele Rigby Assad, who is a former counterintelligence CIA officer. Actually, CIA, how do you say? CIA intelligence officer. There we go. That's how you say that. Also, security consultant and author of the book Breaking Cover, My Secret Life in the CIA and What It Taught Me About What's Worth Fighting For. And Michele, while we were on the commercial break, there were a couple of theories going on in the chat. I don't know if you saw them or not, because I know you were in the chat, and thank you for that. But there were a couple of really cool theories going on in the chat that I want to run by you.
Sure.
I said we weren't going to talk about this anymore, but they were really interesting, so I thought I'd throw them at you. One person said, and this occurred to me too, actually, I thought about this. somebody said, you know, maybe he was being blackmailed as a, you know, so ISIS is claiming this, but maybe he was claiming this, you know, via like like third party, like being blackmailed because of his dad or something like that, being coerced. Know what I mean? Coerced into doing it. Does that make any sense? What do you think? Oh, you still there? Did I hang up on you by accident? Oh no, don't tell me I lost Michelle. Let me see if I accidentally lost her. I'm sure she will call back if I lost her. Because well, let me see. Ah, I don't see her. I don't see her on the screen anymore. I may have lost her. I'm sure if I lost her that she is going to call back momentarily so that she can answer that question. I must have lost her by accident. Oh, here she is. Hi, I'm sorry. I guess I lost you. I apologize.
It totally cut off. No,
I'm sorry. So what I meant to ask, what I asked you, sorry about that. I feel like that was probably me. So
yeah, to answer your question, yeah, do I think he was blackmailed? I have seen Al-Qaeda and ISIS type groups do that in the Middle East with individuals. I've never seen anything on this scale, and my gut tells me that's probably not the case. Because you would have seen communications between him and some bad guys, which would again be very, very easy to pick up for investigators. Okay,
interesting. Now they go back and forth to the Philippines. There's some business in Dubai apparently that his girlfriend has. Any connections there?
Well, the first thing that I would ask, given the Philippines connection, is she from a part of the Philippines where they have a radical Islamic problem and people fighting the government there, terrorists in that country. Is she from that region? Has she had any contact with those, what I call bad guys? And in the UAE, it would really depend on, you know, what her connections were there. I lived there for 5 years, and they're pretty good at kind of ferreting out extremists, especially foreign extremists in their midst. So, but whether she had any, you know, weird contacts there is a whole other question that, again, I think investigators would be able to find in her phone records and emails and things like that.
Now, I'll tell you one thing that I find strange is that she's not back here now. I don't know. Like, my man shoots up 50 people, like kills 50 people and injures 500. I don't know. Right. I'm not like, I'll be back next week. I'm on a plane.
It's entirely possible that she is also being debriefed by whatever. I heard that, or I read that she was in Japan or the Philippines. I'm not really sure that she's being debriefed by their intelligence and security agencies, and that information is then being shared with the U.S. But of course, you'd want to be directly debriefing her, because in order to get to the truth, you've really got to be able to look at people's body language to assess if they're being honest or they're hiding something from you.
Right. Like that kind of like at first, and the other thing was I thought like the next morning we heard like we had her, and what I thought they meant was we have her, not like somebody else has her. Like we have her, and I was like, well, we don't have her. Somebody else. Like I want to know that somebody with an American flag slapped across their chest has her.
Like it is a huge avenue of investigation that until she gets back here and they can deal with her directly is really a lot of unanswered questions.
Right. When I heard she was still abroad, I was like, well, I'm not feeling that. Like I want her here.
That is not ideal. That is correct.
It's not, right? Like it's not me, right?
No, you've got that right.
Okay, so I didn't think I was like imagining things. When I heard that she really wasn't here, and they were kind of like she'll be back next year. Well, from a CIA and intelligence perspective, why is it that we did not go get her? I mean, is that a violation of her rights? Like we can't just go get her?
Actually, that would be right under FBI's purview. So I'm not entirely sure of all of the laws that you know, but I'm sure because she's a U.S. citizen and, you know, they have some ways to try to encourage her cooperation without, you know, but we'll see. We'll see how long it takes for her to return and for those debriefings to occur.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I said, if it were me, I would want to get back on American soil like as soon as possible.
Right, absolutely.
And like,
especially if you have nothing to do with it, but you want to help investigators understand more about your partner, your boyfriend, the person you've been living with. I mean, she probably has the best insight than anyone in the world right now at this point.
And I mean, don't you want to come back and be like, and grieve over him and be like, oh my God, he's gone?
There's also that aspect of it, right?
And all of that
you love is now gone. So how do you deal with that? That's a very complicated emotional state to be in, I'm sure, for her.
Right. Don't you want to be with like his family and be like, oh my God, what happened? And aren't you guys like comforting each other? Like, I mean, listen, I'm just like a regular girl. I don't know about these folks. You know.
Well, you know, it's intelligence work is so very interesting. I think when you're dealing with counterterrorism issues, people think that gathering intelligence is very difficult, when in fact it's not that hard. We actually get inundated with intelligence. Now, the hard part is ferreting out your little gold nuggets, what makes sense, because we have a lot of sources that lie and fabricate, double agents that give us bad info. So you have this, you know, so much data, and the idea is to take pieces of that data and know when they matter, and to be able to put them together like pieces of a puzzle. And so it is an overwhelming job with so much work. And so when you talk about the cost of counterterrorism, you know, the CIA budget is hidden. It's secret. But I can tell you that the cost of that in human lives is extensive. Almost 10 years of my life overseas, hardly seeing my family, you know, missing out on birthdays and holidays and working weekends and working extremely long days in war zones. And so the nice thing at this point is to realize that there is an army of thousands of people that are looking into this right now all over the world.
Indeed. And for that, my friend, we are grateful, eternally grateful that there are,
that's very nice. Thank you for saying that.
That there are people like you who are willing to stare fear in the face every single day. And you know, I've been throwing around this title of hers, you know, CIA, former CIA counterterrorism agent. But if you know what we're talking about, you know, living in countries for years on end where women had no rights. Like, it wasn't like, you know, she lived in a country as a CIA agent and, you know, living in the Middle East and like, but she was still an American. No, she wasn't. Like,
I had to adhere to the local, you know, laws and rules and operate in a very, very different cultures, which is a whole different experience, and one that, I mean, it enables you to grow so much as you understand where other people are coming from. But it was a real privilege to be in, and difficulty to be in all those places. You know, I'm allowed to say I served in Iraq. I'm not allowed to say the other places, but I could include those stories in my book, and got CIA permission to do that, to use those stories as a means to inspire others to have confidence in themselves, get out of their comfort zones, and sometimes do the thing that scares you the most.
You familiar with that?
I am very, I know this firsthand, so familiar with it. The idea of, you know, your gifts cannot be truly and fully understood until you're pushed to the edge, until you are in a place of difficulty and sometimes even suffering to try to understand. And it's in those places that you're so scared to go where you really are able to grow and find what it is you have to give. To Iraq, which is the one place on earth that I was trying to get out of, I would have never have discovered that I was such a good intelligence officer. I had been in the CIA for years thinking I wasn't good enough, and it was Iraq where I actually found out that I was really good at it, and it was a revelation to me. And so that revelation really went into my book, and trying to inspire others to get past the fear in their own minds and like reach out.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So in the last few minutes of the show, you're going to tell us where we can buy your book. I think you told us some of what the book is about, but tell us a little bit more about the book, where we can get it, when it comes out. Is it already out or?
No, so you can pre-order the book now, but it will be released in the beginning of February. And you can order it from all the regular places that you buy books. So if that's Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever, you can buy it there. And as soon as it's releasable, it'll come to you. Even an audiobook, which is exciting.
Look at you.
And Breaking Cover is essentially my memoir, which I use, all the funny, fun, funky stories of my pre- and post-CIA career to show that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when their faith and determination is greater than their fears.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And you are a speaker and trainer and consultant as well. Where can they get in touch with you for those things?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, Michele with one L, Rigby Assad, ASSAD, and from there you can email me and get in touch if you want to connect with me there.
I love it. Michele Rigby Assad, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Melanie.
Today.
Thank you so much.
You rocked it, girl. You killed it. See, didn't I tell you? It's just like talking to me on the phone.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it so much.
You did a great job. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it so much. And thank you for your service to our country, most importantly.
Oh, thanks, Melanie.
Absolutely. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. That was Michele Assad, folks. My new friend, Michele Assad. I'm friends with the former CIA counterterrorism agent. Just so you guys know. I'm just saying. She was just fantastic. Thank you, Eaton Jordan, for introducing us, by the way. And thank you guys for listening and being in the chat. I want to thank once again my sponsors and my new sponsor to be announced on Friday. I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone for listening on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. Thank you guys on Facey. Thank you guys on YouTube. Have a fantastic day. And remember, all of this is very important because it is your money.